Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our program, Where God Weeps. Today we consider Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa with over 130 million inhabitants, and a country which is the fifth largest exporter of oil. The country has been increasingly in the headlines due to conflicts between Christians and Muslims, particularly in the north, where a number of states have introduced the Sharia, the political expression of Islam. Let's watch now an excerpt to see how Christians and Muslims live side by side in northern Nigeria.
The religious conflicts in Nigeria have claimed 10,000 lives in the last 4 years and destroyed properties worth millions of dollars. Over 300 Christian churches have been destroyed and 250,000 people displaced. In November 2002, the Muslim faithful took to the street in protest over an article published in a daily newspaper concerning the event of the Miss World Beauty Contest to be hosted by Nigeria. The article stated that if the Prophet Muhammad was alive, he would have admired and married one of the girls in the competition. Muslims considered this a blasphemy against Islam.
As a result, they took to the street and they vent their anger on innocent citizens, more especially the Christians. The attack took place at about 10 in the morning, where most of the workers had gone to work, and the children and the women were the victim of attack. They just get into anybody's house, force the door open, take whatever they can take away from there. The ones they cannot take, they destroy. And whoever they're able to meet, they still murder, more especially a Christian. The church was affected. Properties were looted. Nursery and primary school was vandalized, completely destroyed down. The fence too was broken down in pieces, and that resulted to the burning of our parish house there and the killing of our parish priest.
So they beat him, cut him with cutlasses, and hit him with hard stick and even iron. So he was badly wounded. He was in the hospital for about 3 months. He died later on, due to the wounds he received. Due to the crisis that took place, a lot of Christians were dislodged from where they were used to stay, because they were afraid if they continue to stay, if there is any further crisis, they might be killed.
The Christians are forced to sell their properties. Right now there is a church the Muslims are trying to buy within this environment. And of course when they buy it, they always convert it to a mosque.
Actually, we have started rebuilding the church that was badly damaged. But in the meantime, we changed the classroom into a temporary church, a place of worship.
Blessed are you amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of the womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at death.
Where we live to come here and worship God, at least some trek up to 10 kilometers. Some will have to drive as far as 15 kilometers in order to get to this place. You find it difficult leaving that place. And moreover, worshiping God here is a challenge. And I think it's a test of our faith. No matter the level of persecution, that will not deter us from what we will achieve. Normally, to follow Christ is not an easy task.
Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa, is inhabited by approximately 140 million people. The country is divided by ethnic and religious differences. 60% of the population is Muslim, living mostly in the north of the country. Christians mainly inhabit the south. The introduction of the Sharia law 10 years ago in 12 states provoked a series of riots throughout the country. In August 2004, the Islamic government in the Zamfara state threatened to demolish all churches considered as illegal structures, close all businesses belonging to Christians during Muslim prayers, and enforce a new law against clothing that is not compliant with Islamic law.
The Constitution of Nigeria guarantees our freedom, but in actual fact on the ground, that freedom may not always be available. We have the situation, for example, of the Sharia law in some of those states. We are still debating it up till now. We believe it is against the Nigerian Constitution.
In Chapter 4 of this Constitution, which came into force in 1999, we have a very elaborate provision relating to freedom of religion. And it says that any individual or even group of individuals have the right to worship or belong to any religious they like. And they also have the right to change their religion. But you see, one of the biggest problems we have had with the interpretation of this particular provision is that the Constitution also gives each state, House of Assembly, the authority and the right to organize its affairs in the state in a manner that suits the local circumstances, the local traditions, and local peculiarities of that particular state. So that is what we now refer to as the Sharia crisis. Some state governments have gone ahead to ban the sale, the consumption of alcohol in their states, and this involves every person, whether you're a Muslim or whether you're a Christian. They have also gone ahead to even regulate the issue of transportation, to say that there must be separate vehicular transportation for women and a separate vehicular transportation for men. They have also gone ahead to insist that men and women cannot attend the same educational institutions. And this has also gone into the issue of mode of dressing. They're insisting that everybody must dress in accordance with Islamic principles and Islamic law. We now have what I call an extreme form of extremism, an extreme form of fanaticism, an extreme form of pernicious violation of the type of religious freedom that has been guaranteed under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This has also led to a situation where people have had to uproot their businesses and relocated to some other states because the conditions in these states where the Sharia law is being practiced is no longer conducive for them to even do their business. It's no longer conducive for them to even practice their religion. And some Christians in Zamfara have told me how difficult it is for them to even get certificates of occupancy in relation to their existing buildings. They have difficulty in renewing them. And they're also insisting that it is very, very difficult to even get a plot of land to even build churches.
In September 2004, about 60 members of a Muslim sect known as the Taliban attacked police stations in the towns of Bama and Gwoza in the Borno state, then carried out raids on Christian communities, killing people, raping women, and burning down homes.
There are some parts of Nigeria where there is a dominant Islamic regime, which is largely controlled by many of these young men who had studied in Iran, studied in Al-Azhar, studied under Libya. When a Nigerian gets a scholarship, and when he goes there, he is put in an institution where he is brainwashed. Of course, he comes back in Mujahideen, and in that kind of place, they are trained, probably, to see within Islam also the element of armed conflict. And so when they come back, What does happen then is that they find it easy, it becomes easy for them to begin to mobilize armed kind of movements.
The recent series of attacks carried out by Islamic fundamentalists in the USA and elsewhere have not remained without consequences in Nigeria.
This fanaticism and religious fundamentalism, they re-echo here in this country. When Osama bin Laden was being hunted, or when Saddam Hussein was captured, there was reaction, and it was based on ignorance. The young Muslims said, oh, he's a Muslim, he's been attacked because he's a Muslim, we must fight back. And in the process, they start to attack innocent Christians and non-Muslims. They start to kill, they start to burn, they're ready to do anything. And I think that is mainly what is responsible for unnecessary crisis.
There's no enmity in religion. Religion does not teach violence. And religion has ways. It has ways of sorting out everything, except if people are ignorant of teaching of the true religions. Terrorist is a very, very bad act, and terrorism is not allowed by Islam.
Killing is evil. It's against Christianity, it's against Islam. All these religions preach peace, so we must, as religious leaders, begin to talk peace, begin to show the need to live peacefully with one another. There is sometimes a lot of hypocrisy when Christians and Muslims meet. They talk and talk, drink tea or Coca-Cola, and they go away. Nothing happens. So we say, look, we must be very serious now. We must overcome sentiments and be able to tell our people that these two religions stand for life.
We have Islamic school. Among the teachers we have there now, 7 Christians, 5 Muslims teaching the school. Muslim invites neighbor, friends who are Christians to come and sit down. Likewise, the Christians. I'm quite sure that it will go down to the grassroots, but gradually.
Since we are so different, we must find a common way of acting together, and the dialogue of life is what I feel will bring us closer. Me reaching out to the Muslims, like I have attended weddings of Muslims. When they call me, I go there to the Imam's house. I participate in their prayers. It doesn't make me a Muslim. I have visited the mosque in Jos, and I was able to extend hand of fellowship to the Muslims with the whole of my strength, encouraging the priests in this diocese to reach out to the Muslim chiefs, to reach out to the Muslim leaders, and show them that we are truly people that believe in love and peaceful coexistence.
Today in our studio we have the privilege of having Msgr Obiora Ike, Vicar General of the Diocese of Enugu in the south of Nigeria. Welcome to our program, Msgr.
Thank you very much.
Msgr, we've heard a lot in the news about the relationship between Muslims and Christians, particularly in the north of Nigeria, where clashes have broken out and up to, I think, 10,000 or 11,000 people have been killed in these disputes and these relationship questions. Can you tell us from your perspective, in the south it's a bit calmer, but can you tell us from your perspective, what is the relationship between Muslims and Christians, and how do you perceive this existence?
Muslims and Christians have always lived in Nigeria for a long time. Islam came to Nigeria around the year 1000 into Kano, and Christianity, even though younger in Nigeria, has existed side by side with Muslims. There has been a very natural and human, cordial relationship, one must even talk about, for so long. Recently, however, we noticed something new happening. We notice a rising fundamentalism, a rising aggression and violence. We notice a rising politicization of Islam and perhaps of religion. And we keep on wondering whether it was necessary to have this in a country like Nigeria, very large country, very important country, very peaceful people, and all of a sudden having to face not just the normal problems of daily life, but also clashes based on religions.
Now you yourself, you have this mix within you, as I understand, from your childhood, your youth. Perhaps you can say 2 words about that.
Yes, I am born in a Muslim community. I am born in the north of Nigeria, in Guzo, which is the headquarters of, why don't I say, the Sharia movement in Nigeria. And I lived for the first 10 years of my life with my parents in the north of Nigeria. I was carried as a boy by Muslims. I went to school in schools where Christians and Muslims played together. We didn't even know fundamental differences of religions because we were all children of God. I must say that we started noticing differences when all of a sudden we hear that Christians are being killed because they are Christians. Muslims are being challenged because they are Muslims, and we keep on asking why. Nonetheless, there is a lot of chance, and that's why I chair the Christian-Muslim dialogue movement in the Enugu state of Nigeria. I believe we must create a forum for dialogue between Christians and Muslims for the purposes of living together and to correspond what the Holy Father has always called us to do, that they may be one, ut unum sint, that people might live in peace, respect for interreligious dialogue as a basis for world peace. We have to do that.
Now we're talking about coexistence between 2 groups that have lived together in peace for generations. However, something new has been introduced, and that is the Sharia, the political, social, cultural embodiment of Islam, particularly in some northern states in Nigeria, which have led to this clash. Can you give us a few words about how Christians are being confronted, and what is the situation for Christians now living in the north under Sharia?
The Sharia is a later development of the 90s and of year 2000. The more fundamental and critical politicization of Islam in Nigeria was the registration of Nigeria by a military government as an Islamic state. Nigeria has been registered by a government in Nigeria, a Muslim president in a military coup, and put as one of the countries belonging to the Organization of Islamic Countries.
Which is completely new.
Which is very new, and that was in 1985, and of course Christians protested, and government said we are going to review it, but Nigeria has remained a member of Islamic countries. I mean, that this has even been underplayed. But added on top of that is one more step, and that is that 12 states out of 36 states in Nigeria have decided to become and to make the Sharia the overriding, you might say, constitutional role within their own states, contradicting the federal constitution of Nigeria, which says that Nigeria is a secular state and no religion shall be considered a state religion. Now we have in Zamfara and some other states, 12 of them, the Islamic Sharia overshadowing even and threatening the peace of these states, because a state like Kaduna State, which has imposed the Sharia, has 70% Christians and non-Muslims. Another state, for example, like in Ilorin, have also a large majority who are not even Muslims. So how, in Niger State, how do you impose Sharia over people who don't want it? And even impose Sharia in those states over the Nigerian constitution.
How do Christians live in a day-to-day? Because as I understand, buses now and taxis have been segregated by gender. That is, that women and men are not able to travel on the same bus, and schools are being closed, religious schools are being closed. What does this mean day-to-day for Christians living under this kind of situation?
Until Zamfara, I grew up in Zamfara, until the recent phenomenon of year 2000 in Zamfara, hotels were open, schools were running, people were doing their daily things, people met themselves in marketplaces and squares and talked, friendships developed, intermarriages even were taking place. But once the governor of Zamfara, a civilian governor, democratically elected, got his parliament to vote that their state will become a Sharia state with the Sharia laws beyond civil law, beyond private law, going into even criminal law. Like, for example, somebody has stolen, you have to cut his hand, and so on. Somebody has killed another, you have to stone him to death, etc. Once that was decided, Christians discovered we cannot stay here. Alcohol was forbidden to be sold, hotels were closed, public places, for example, which were just like normal civil clubs or whatever were closed. But beyond that, people started running away. Investors kept away. Unemployment is increasing. But what surprises us is this governor and his state say we are getting more money from Islamic countries. We are going to get loans from Saudi Arabia and other Islamic countries.
You yourself have experienced persecution, religious persecution. Can you tell us in 2 words how this has touched you personally?
I live anew. I would have been dead by now. There has been abuse of human rights, which the Catholic Church will always oppose. I'm director of the Catholic Institute for Development, Justice and Peace in my country. And we've had occasions to criticize abuses of fundamental rights. And government said, look, go and kill that man. I mean, and it was teleguided. The killers came, they saw me.
Because you were speaking so openly about the respect for human rights and for these issues.
The good news challenges everybody. The good news leads those who don't want to accept this good news to look at you as a target.
I think what you said was it was like a thorn in the eye.
And even beyond that, they had killed also people who went to a place of prayer. And in my capacity as the Vicar General, we wrote a statement saying that it was wrong to kill people. 14 human beings had been killed, gassed to death, brutalized. Why do you kill people who go to pray? What did they do in worshiping God? So they said, you are criticizing us. Okay, we'll deal with you. Killers were sent to me and I was ready to die. I'm always ready to die. And I told them, look, death is what we must all face. But the Christian believes in heaven. When we die, we go back to God.
They came to your house?
They came to the residence of the, well, there were a few persons, but 2 were inside the Vicar General's residence with guns open clearly. They had harassed those who walk with me, they had beaten them up, they had tied them, locked them up, used guns on their heads and so on, I brutalized them. And then only that I came down, they would have killed those people. So when I came, I said, what are you dealing with these people? Leave them. What do you want? We came to kill you. Here I am. I'm not afraid to die. Go ahead and kill me. But have I done anything to you? I'm a Catholic priest. They say, yes, we are sent to kill you. We are hired to kill you. I've been paid to kill you. If you have been paid to, go ahead and kill me, but leave these ones alone. By the way, will you allow me to say my last prayer? And I had celebrated Mass in the morning. This was happening in the evening time. So I went back to Jesus in the Eucharist and said, look, said my last prayers, except that the killers who had raised the guns to shoot me, as I was praying in the church, put them down. I call it the mystery of the Eucharist. Put down the guns and said, you are a good man. We shan't touch you. We know what you are doing for our people. We know what your gospel means for our people. The good news is giving hope. You are getting a lot of, and so on. They praise, they sang God's praises. I think they were inspired. We didn't see you. And then, of course, they disappeared from the flat. And I just stood there and said, well, God, you give me another chance. I'll continue to preach the good news. But it's very touching. It makes you have goosebumps, yes. Because life, you just have one life. Yes. But the Christian must strongly start now thinking that beyond this life, there is a higher and better life. And fear is not the way. We must be courageous enough to go the way of the Lord.
Nigeria has an explosion of vocations at the moment, not only for men, but also for women. And so much so that Nigeria could also almost be considered a missionary country in sending missionaries out to other. Can you give us a little insight as to the vocation situation?
Nigeria is now for the Catholic Church a missionary country, sending out missionaries to other countries. The Nigerian Bishops' Conference have founded the Missionary Society of St. Paul on their own since 20 years and more. And from here, they send missionaries, diocesan priests, who they're not congregation, they're not religious congregation. They're sent to work in the USA, in the Caribbean, in Latin America, in African countries, in Muslim areas, just as a gift of the Nigerian church to the world church. That's one. Many dioceses are very active in sending out missionaries. My own diocese of Enugu in southern Nigeria has missionaries in northern Nigeria, in Minna Diocese, in Kano, in Niger, in the Niger, in Chad Republic, Muslim countries, sending out in Europe, also in America. We believe that God hasn't gifted us. We have 10,000 seminarians reading theology this moment in the seminaries in Nigeria.
To come to the question of AIDS, in Africa we hear a lot about this issue, almost as if it was the only issue confronting the African continent. And In Nigeria, AIDS has not spared you and your country. Can you tell us a little bit about this and how the Church is working in this question?
Exaggerations are always not good. There has been an exaggeration of the phenomenon of HIV and AIDS. It is a very serious sickness. It's a killing disease. It's a virus that there's no medicine known now to cure it permanently. But there has been an unnecessary media hype around the HIV/AIDS story that one gives the impression, especially to the West, that every African who died of AIDS, and some countries feel agitated and think that's an insult almost. The number of those who die of malaria is still the majority. Majority of human beings die of malaria, die of pneumonia, die of diseases of bad water, bad food, and other insect sicknesses. HIV adds to the phenomenon, adds to the sicknesses that are now available within our own areas, but not to the extent that 50% or such large percentages that people mention. The Catholic Church has come out with a very strong policy on HIV and AIDS in the Nigerian Church. The Catholic Church have challenged people to be very, very clear about their sexual activity, responsibility, the sacredness of this particular gift, sexuality as a gift, and the reasons of the moral teachings of the Church, which are very, very important, which are useful for the people of today who are free but are responsible. The Catholic Church has talked about accompanying people living with AIDS in such a way that they are not discriminated against, and also of making sure that access is given to them for care, for concern, and for love. The Catholic Church has appealed to those who make the pharmaceuticals to make these medicine and tablets at least available for people at rates that they can pay for. You know, of course, about patent laws and copyright laws, whereby medicine cannot even reach the people, and the pharmaceuticals are just thinking about business, not about human life. We have even been told to take loans from international monetary organizations like the IMF, take loans of $1 billion just to go and buy medicine to cure people or to give to people who are suffering from AIDS. If you take loan from a World Bank to be paid by those who are dying, I mean, how do you justify that? So there is an abuse, a manipulation of a sickness that is phenomenal. We've never seen this kind of thing before.
Msgr Ike, thank you for being with us and for sharing this with us. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today on our program Where God Weeps, where we've understood a bit more about Nigeria, a land of hope, a land of blessing. And we look forward to seeing you next time.